Hi, I'm Lisa from Australian travel and migration blog dreamingofdownunder.com. Today I'm going to talk through how I got permanent residency in Australia through a 189 skilled migration visa. With this visa you'll need to have specific qualifications or work experience in a job that Australia has a shortage of workers in. You'll also need to pass certain criteria and have enough points on their point system. With the 189 visa, you can apply outside of Australia, and once it's granted, you have immediate permanent residency when you get here, and you're free to live and work anywhere you want in Australia, in any job you want. This is very different from the sponsorship visas, where you have to live in a certain state if a state is sponsoring you, or stick with a certain company if a company is sponsoring you. You can also apply for citizenship after you've lived in Australia for 4 years if you've been on permanent residency for at least 1 year. I've written a big blog post on this too with links to all the relevant pages on the government website, so check that out if you want to go through it in more detail. Step 1 is to check if your job is on the skilled occupation list. For a 189 visa, you need to look at the medium and long-term strategic skills list. If you go onto the skilled occupation list, you just select the 189 visa from the menu at the top and it will narrow down the list to the right occupations for that visa. There's over 200 different jobs and they're not all things like brain surgeons, you've got all sorts of trades as well, so it's really worth having a look through. You don't have to have a job that exactly matches the title, it can be a closely related occupation. The next step is to check the requirements needed to be accepted into your occupation in Australia. So on the skilled occupation list, you'll see a column saying assessing authority. So find the right assessing authorities for your occupation, and then if you click through to their website, have a look for their migration page. They should detail the requirements and the qualifications you need. So that will be the professional body that checks whether you're accepted or not. For example, I came through management accounting because I'm qualified with CIMA, so I chose CPA Australia and they did my skills assessment. The third step is to check if you have enough points on their point system and whether you meet the minimum criteria. So currently you need 65 points for the 189 visa. You also need to be under 45, meet the health and character requirements and have a competent level of English. You can use the points calculator on the government website to work out how many points you've got, and you get points for things like your age, your qualifications, your work experience and lots of other things. Step 4 is to check SkillSelect for the realistic number of points you need. So unfortunately, having enough points to get in, so 65, doesn't mean that you will be offered a place. Before you apply for the 189 visa, you have to submit an expression of interest, and this will calculate how many points you've got. And then they have invitation rounds where a limited number of places will be sent out to invite you to apply. And people with the highest points are invited first. People with the same amount of points as each other, priority will be given to the people who sent their expression of interest in first. So it could be that you have 65 points, but currently all the places are being taken by people with 80 points or more. So it's really important you check this before you get overexcited. When I applied back in 2014, you only needed 60 points and everyone with 60 points or more was immediately invited to apply, and the visas were granted usually with like 1 to 3 months. So it's very different now, unfortunately. Even before COVID, it had really slowed down and now it's a lot slower and you do need more points. So you can go onto SkillSelect and look at the last invitation rounds and it will tell you the minimum number of points that the people invited had. So looking at October 21, that invitation round, only people with 90 or more points were invited. Another thing to look at on that page, if you scroll down, is occupational ceilings. So if there's a really high number of applications for a certain occupation, they can raise the number of points you need for it, so they're basically only taking the best people. The year after I applied for my visa, they raised the points for accounting to 70, so I would not have got the visa if I'd left it another year, and also I think it went up to 85 for a while after that. But it's worth checking it regularly because that does change. Step 5 is to take the English test. Even if you're a native English speaker, you're probably going to have to take the test. Some occupations require you to reach a certain level in the test to be accepted. Also, you get extra points on your visa application if you get higher results in your English test. I took the IELTS test in the UK and I needed to get 8 out of 9 in each of the 4 components in order to get enough points for my visa. I also needed 7 out of 9 in each component to be accepted for accounting. When you submit your expression of interest, you can't just guess your English test results, you have to use the actual results. So you'll need to take that before you put in your expression of interest. It's worth noting that if you don't get the results you need and you think you've been unfairly marked, you can pay for a remark. I got 9 out of 9 in speaking, reading and listening, and then writing I got 7.5, and I needed 8. And when I found some sample answers online, there was no way that I was in the 7.5 band. It was clearly not from an English speaking person. So I paid to get it remarked, which was around £60 I think. They remarked it, they put it up to an 8.5 and then refunded the fee. So if they raise your marks, they'll refund you the remark fee. But just note that they remark the whole paper, so it could be that they lower your mark, but there was nothing I could do with a 7.5. I just couldn't apply for the visa, so it was worth me doing that. Step 6 is to complete your skills assessment. When you find your assessing authority on the skills occupation list, they will list what qualifications and experience you need. So for me, I didn't apply for any work experience points because I had less than 3 years of experience after finishing my qualification, so that's not classed as professional work experience. So I completely left off the work experience part and I just had my qualifications checked. I had to get signed copies of my exam results and certificates, and I had to mail them to Australia, to the CPA here. Unfortunately, I had to do this about 3 times because they wanted a slightly different format to what I'd sent. They wanted all the results on one page. It was really annoying because I sent them the same results, but I just had to do it differently each time. And it was all by mail and there was a long waiting list, so that did hold things up a bit. Step 7 is to submit your expression of interest. Once you've got your English test marks and you've passed your skills assessment, you can now apply for your expression of interest. So this doesn't cost anything and it's valid for 2 years, and you can update it as you go along if things change. So maybe you retake the English test and got a better mark, you could then update that. Step 8 is to apply for your 189 visa. So once you've been invited to apply, you can then put in your application for the actual visa. This is when you pay, so currently for one person it's just over 4,000 Australian dollars. You'll need to get lots of documents signed and sent off, so do research into that first, get everything ready and prepared because you've only got 60 days to put in your application, so have everything ready to go. Step 9 is to get your police check and medical examination done. Once I'd applied for my visa, I was prompted to get these tests done. The police check is easy, you just send off for it. The medical check, you need to book in with a special panel doctor and pay for the exam. So these are trained in doing the migration test and they'll send the results off for you. So you can't just go to your GP and do it on the NHS, you have to pay for it. My test included an eye test, blood pressure check, urine sample, chest x-ray for TB, an HIV blood test and a general examination with the doctor, just using a stethoscope and checking for glands. I was actually told during the exam that I had a heart murmur, so I had to wait 5 weeks for a scan on the NHS and get the results, and found out that I didn't have a heart murmur after all, so that was a bit of a pain. Once you've submitted everything and applied, you just have to wait for your visa grant letter to come through. It'll come through via an email. Look on the government website to find out the current wait times, and I joined a forum, but I'm sure now there are Facebook groups and things like that, so you can find out what's happening with other people who've also applied. Here are some of the items you'll see on your visa grant letter and what they mean. The make first entry to Australia by date. This means that you have to enter Australia by that date or your visa will no longer be valid. Mine was exactly a year after my police check. I believe it's a year after the earlier of your medical exam and your police check. The must not arrive after date. This is 5 years after your visa grant date, and this relates to your travel facility. So even though you've got permanent residency, you can actually only travel in and out of Australia for 5 years after your visa grant date. And after that, you'll need either citizenship or a resident return visa to get back into the country if you leave. I have the resident return visa because I didn't have time to apply for citizenship before I needed to leave the country once. It was very, very easy and granted within minutes, so I think it's just an automated process. The travel facility multiple part, that just relates to that 5-year period where you can travel in and out of Australia multiple times as much as you want. Visa conditions, nil, so there are no conditions on this visa. You don't have to stick with a company that sponsors you, you don't have to live in a certain state, you don't even have to work in the occupation that you applied through. I travelled for over a year when I got here and had a total career change. I've met other people travelling doing the same thing as well. When I called the tax office to do my first tax return, they actually said to me, we've got no record of you being in the country. And I said, well, I am here. And then they said, I don't think you need to do a tax return. I said, well, I run a business, so I think that I do. So yeah, I did one, but they're not exactly on the ball with it. I hope that's been useful. Remember to check out my blog post to go through in more detail and go through to the government website and have a look at everything. I didn't use an agent, I did everything myself, but I know some of the other visas are more complicated and it is a lot harder to get through now and you need higher points, so it might be worth finding an agent if you want some advice. If you're moving to Australia yourself or you're applying for this visa, let me know in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more videos on life and travel in Australia. Thanks for watching.